Hello and welcome to my class. Today we're going to study the fourth chapter from your book, and the name of the chapter is A Truly Beautiful Mind. Okay, before we begin to understand the chapter, I'm sure you must have heard of the word genius. That is something, it's a very oft heard to word by most of us. What does the word genius mean to you? And what qualities do you think that a genius person has? Just think about all these questions. Now we're going to read about a young German civil servant who took the world by storm about 100 years ago. And in the summer of 1905, the 26-year-old published in quick succession 4 groundbreaking papers. His name is no mystery to us. It is a synonym for recognition, for creativity, for research, for innovation. The name of this man is Albert Einstein. The electrodynamics, moving bodies, various scientific journals, and the way he changed our understanding of the entire cosmos is something that's going to be remembered forever. Let's see what this genius was about. Albert Einstein was born on 14th of March 1879 in the German city of without any indication that he was destined for greatness. On the contrary, his mother thought Albert was a total freak. To her, his head seemed very, very large. At the age of 2.5, Einstein still wasn't talking. When he finally did learn to speak, he uttered everything twice. Einstein did not know what to do with other children, and his playmates called him Brother Boring. So the youngster played by himself. We are introduced to Albert Einstein, and what we can understand from this page is that he was a rather different child. His mother thought that he was a total freak because his head seemed very large to her. He was not able to speak until the age of 6, and by the time he started speaking, he would actually say the same word twice. So that was very different, very unique for a child of that age. He would play mostly by himself most of the time, and he loved to play with all the mechanical toys. Looking at his newborn sister Maja, he is said to have, "Fine, but where are her wheels?" A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he'll never make a success at anything. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to, and he later on went on to become a very gifted amateur violinist, maintaining this skill throughout his life. So these two paragraphs tell us that he was a very different, a very uniquely abled child. A very uniquely abled, I am saying the word uniquely abled because that is what he was. He was not differently abled, he was uniquely abled. He had such qualities which normally people don't have. When he used to look at his sister, he would ask for her wheels because he thought that everything was a simple toy, and he loved to play with mechanical toys. And when he was 6 years old, his mother introduced him to the instrument violin, and this he continued to play all through his life, and he was a gifted amateur violinist. So at this age, having such a brain and such thinking was quite different. Let's see what happens to him. But Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. He went to high school in Munich, where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old, and scored good marks in almost every subject. Einstein hated the school's regimentation and often clashed with his teachers. At the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled there that he left the school for good. Here we are told about how Einstein fared as a child, as a student. He was not a bad pupil. He went to a school in Munich and he did score good marks in almost every subject. So what his headmaster said about him wasn't very true in this regards. Although, yes, so he hated regimentation at school. What is regimentation? It is the discipline or the order which is taken to a far extreme. And that is when the students, they begin to start hating it. And so, he often had a clash with his teachers. And at the age of 15, he was so stifled, he was so moved, and he didn't want to continue there that he left the school for good. He left the school for good. And what good? The whole world knows about it. The previous year, Albert's parents had moved to Milan and left their son with relatives. After prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish to continue his education in German-speaking Switzerland in a city which was more liberal than Munich. So this was his beginning, his early years, and how he had to move to Switzerland, and he loved to stay there because it was a far liberal city as compared to Munich. Einstein was highly gifted in maths and he was very much interested in physics, and after finishing school, he decided to study at a university in Zurich. But science wasn't the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man with the walrus mustache. Please look at the adjectives that the writer wants you to identify in. Walrus mustache, and Einstein was very gifted in maths, he was interested in physics, and he decided to study at another university in Zurich. He also felt a special interest in a fellow student, Mileva Maric, whom he found to be a clever creature. This young Serb had come to Switzerland because the university in Zurich was one of the few in Europe where women could get degrees. Einstein saw in her an ally against the Philistines, those people in his family and at the university with whom he was constantly at odds. He found an ally in another student called Mileva Maric, and he found her to be a clever creature. And she had come to Switzerland because the Zurich University was the only place at that time where even women could study and they could get the degrees. And so Einstein saw in her an ally for himself. And against whom? Against the Philistines. Who are Philistines? Willing to understand and respect others' opinions are liberal. Philistines are people who are very hard and fast about, any vocation, any particular hobby, and who do not literally have any liking for literature or music or art. The couple fell in love. Letters survive in which they put their affection into words, mixing science with tenderness. Wrote Einstein, "How happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion." Their friendship blossomed and it turned into love for each other, and they started writing letters. So the letters are still there as evidence, and Einstein wrote that, "How happy and proud I shall be when we have both brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion." Although what does this show us? It shows us that although he was in a relationship, but it was science which was at the back of his mind all the time. It was creativity, it was innovation, which was with him all the time. And that is what he wanted to achieve. Probably, maybe he didn't know it himself, but this was there in his mind subconsciously all the time. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein was a university graduate and unemployed. He worked as a teaching assistant, gave private lessons, and finally secured a job in 1902 as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern. What do these lines tell us? These lines tell us of the struggle that Albert Einstein had to go through as a young boy. He was a graduate but unemployed. So what did he start doing? He started working as an assistant and started giving private tuitions, and that's when he got a job as a technical expert in the patent office. While he was supposed to be assessing other people's inventions, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. Yes, so a very important trait is what we get to know about, that although he was supposed to be checking on to others' inventions, he was actually developing his own ideas in secret. He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Look at the metaphor that the writer uses to compare desk drawer as the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. So look at, just imagine the level at which he wanted his work to be at, and what all he must have had in his mind. Once, one of the famous papers of 1905 was Einstein's special theory of relativity. Yes, this theory of relativity is path-breaking. Students from the science background or people who are interested in science will understand the importance of this theory of relativity, according to which time and distance are not absolute. Indeed, two perfectly accurate clocks will not continue to show the same time if they come together again after a journey if one of them has been moving very fast relative to the other. This is the explanation of the theory of relativity. From this followed the world's most famous formula, which describes the relationship between mass and energy. This is the formula, and this is how it was developed by Albert Einstein. In this equation, we all know very well about E is equal to mc square. In this equation, E is for energy, m is for mass, and c for the speed of the light in a vacuum, which is about 300,000 kilometers per second. While Einstein was solving the most difficult problems in physics, his private life was unraveling. Please underline the word unraveling. Albert had wanted to marry Mileva right after finishing his studies, but his mother was against it. So although he was doing really well in his professional front, here his private life was in troubled waters. She thought Mileva, who was 3 years older than her son, was too old for him. She was also bothered by Mileva's intelligence. She was a book like you, his mother said. Einstein put the wedding off. So their love affair did not culminate into anything. They had to end their relationship because Einstein's mother was not very approving of the relationship. She thought that Mileva was 3 years older to him, and her intelligence was also a thing of worry for Einstein's mother. And hence, Einstein decided to call off the wedding. The pair finally married in January 1903 and had 2 sons, but a few years later the marriage faltered. Mileva, meanwhile, was losing her intellectual ambition and becoming an unhappy housewife. After years of constant fighting, the couple finally divorced in 1919. Einstein married his cousin Elsa the same year. So this is about his personal life and how this was shaping while he was doing all the wonders in science. Mileva lost her intellectual ambition and started to become an unhappy housewife, and after fighting, constant years of fighting, they divorced in 1919, and hence Einstein married his cousin in 1919. Let's move back to his professional life, what he was doing there. Einstein's new personal chapter coincided with his rise to world fame. In 1915, he had published his General Theory of Relativity, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. An eclipse of the sun in 1919 brought proof that it was accurate. So this was a witness, like everyone saw it happen right in front of their eyes. Einstein had correctly calculated in advance the extent to which the light from fixed stars would be deflected through the sun's gravitational field. The newspapers proclaimed his work as a scientific revolution. His work was proclaimed to be a scientific revolution, and the solar eclipse was a testimony of the fact, and it acted as evidence which worked in his favor. So he was doing wonders in his professional life. Einstein received the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. He was showered with honors and invitations from all over the world and lauded by the press. When the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, Einstein emigrated to the United States. 5 years later, the discovery of nuclear fission in Berlin had American physicists in an uproar. Please underline the word uproar. Many of them had fled from fascism, just as Einstein had, and now they were afraid the Nazis could build and use an atomic bomb. So what is uproar? Very upset. And this is what was happening in the world scenario when Albert Einstein was doing all of that great work. At the urging of a colleague, Einstein wrote a letter to the American President Franklin D. Roosevelt on 2nd of August 1939, in which he warned a single bomb of this type exploded in a port might very well destroy the whole port together with some of the surrounding territory. His words did not fail to have an effect. The Americans developed the atomic bomb in a secret project of their own and dropped it on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. Now, Einstein's colleague urged him to write a letter to the American president and to warn him against what was being developed there. A single bomb of this type could destroy the whole part and also the surrounding territory. And his words did not fail to have an effect. It actually happened with the very sad bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where a lot of lives were lost and there was a lot of grave loss of property as well. Einstein was deeply shaken by the extent of the destruction. This time he wrote a public missive to the United Nations. In it, he proposed the formation of a world government. Unlike the letter to Roosevelt, this one made no impact. But over the next decade, Einstein got very more involved in politics, agitating for an end to the arms build-up and using his popularity to campaign for peace and democracy. Previously, he had written a letter to Franklin Roosevelt, which was taken cognizance of, but this time he did propose the formation of a world government because he was shaken by the destruction that happened, loss of lives and loss of property, and but this was of no help. Unlike the letter to the Roosevelt, Einstein saw that nothing culminated and he decided to use his popularity to campaign for democracy and peace. That's the end of the chapter. Now let's look at some of the questions which are there after the chapter. Here are some of the headings for paragraphs in the text. Please go back to your books and just check. Write the number of the paragraph for each title against the heading. The first one is done for you. Einstein's equation can be found in paragraph number 9. Einstein meets his future wife in number 7. The making of a violinist is at number 3. Mileva and Einstein's mother at number 10. A letter that launched the arms race is at 15. Remember the letter to Roosevelt? Yeah, that letter. A desk drawer full of ideas is 8th, and marriage and divorce at number 11. Who had these opinions about Einstein? Who thought that he was boring? It was Einstein's playmates who thought that he was boring. He was stupid and would never succeed in life. His headmaster thought that he will never succeed in life, because remember, he had said that no matter what you put him into, he's never going to be successful at anything. He was a freak. Who thought? This is right there at the very first page. Einstein's mother thought that he was a complete freak. What the reasons for the following are: Einstein leaving the school in Munich for good. He left for good because he hated the school's regimentation. Again, a very important word, because yeah, this is a key word, regimentation. Einstein wanting to study in Switzerland rather than Munich. He wanted to study there because it was a far more liberal place than Munich. Einstein seeing in Mileva an ally. Einstein considered Mileva to be a clever creature. This is what he thought of Mileva. What do these tell you about Einstein? These facts throw light on Einstein's ways of a liberal lifestyle and the immense amount of respect he had for freedom and liberty. He was a very cultured person with a very, very sharp mind. What did Einstein call his desk drawer at the patent office? He called, remember it as the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. This was because the drawer was where he used to store his secretly developed ideas. Why did Einstein write a letter to Franklin Roosevelt? Because he knew about the consequences that an atomic explosion can bring about. So he wanted to warn him that if he does something like that, this is the kind of destruction that's going to come. So this is this. How did Einstein react to the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? He was profoundly disturbed. Please write these words for surely in your answers. Profoundly disturbed by the magnitude of the destruction caused by the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He even wrote a letter to the United Nations proposing the formation of a world government. Gradually, he became more and more involved in politics, attempting to bring about world peace. Why does the world remember Einstein as a world citizen? He is remembered as a world citizen as much as a genius scientist because of his efforts towards world peace and democracy, and for his crusade against the use of arms. He was a rather peace-loving person, and arms and destruction and atomic bombs, they were just not his cup of tea. These are some of the facts. You need to arrange them in chronological order, and this is the order. Please cross-check from your book. Einstein is born in the German city of Einstein attends a high school. His family moves to Milan. He is tired of the regimentation. He withdraws from school. He joins a university in Zurich where he meets Mileva. He works in a patent office as a technical expert. He publishes his special theory of relativity. He provides a new interpretation of gravity. He is awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. And when Hitler comes to power, Einstein leaves Germany for the US. Einstein writes a letter to the US President Franklin Roosevelt and warns against Germany's building of an atomic bomb. And the last of it all is when Einstein dies. So that's the end of the chapter. Hope you've understood the chapter well enough. Please do get back to us for any further comments or suggestions. Thank you so much.